The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am Research, Picks, Course Preview, Guessing the Odds, and a field update, and everything that's going on in the world of golf right now. Smash a like while you're here, sub to the channel, leave an audio rating and review, and sub to the audio podcast feed if you're doing it. If you always want the visual, check out the Mayo Media YouTube channel if you are one of those audio listeners right now. And I want to jump directly into this because I am having a great week so far. What didn't start out well. My account got hacked. I ended up getting it back. And then on Wednesday, I won 20,000 American, which is 30,000 Canadian, tax-free, mind you, because I live in Canada, on DraftKings with the tools that I used at Fantasy National and the strategy that I employed, capping my lineups so I wouldn't have dupe lineups with 85% of the field that went 6-0 at the North Course. It was fantastic, but just to show you how much luck that you need for something like this. So a few things happened in a span of about 15 minutes. I thought I was dead, but then the DraftKings imported the wrong score for Taylor Pendrith for one of the holes. So it reset him and it put me back into contention. So I needed Pendrith to par the final par 5, and I needed Hayden Buckley to par the final par 5, and then I needed Michael Thorbjornsen to make birdie on his final, which was not a par 5, it was a par 4. All of those things happened. I won by 0.5 of a point. That is just sort of the run good that you need at some times. And so we'll see if that can continue into Saturday, because I'm filming this before the fourth round starts at Torrey Pines, which is shaping up to be a lot of fun. I have Aldrich Pottinger, and I did say that I would learn how to properly pronounce his name if he ends up winning. Because if he wins, I really complete the $40 into $10,000 challenge. I know there's so many of you out there with him on your tickets as a gigantic long shot. It almost seems impossible that he can win with so many people holding that big of a betting ticket. But it's not just that. Ludwig is still somewhat in the mix after having a down Friday where he was pretty sick on the course. We saw a lot of WDs. Some was weather related, some was course related, and some was the sickness related that was running through Torrey Pines. We saw a lot of guys pull up because they were just not feeling well at the course. Jeff has Harris English, who's currently in the lead, and Ludwig. And then Paul, out of nowhere, gives us the KH Lee ladder on the Friday live show, and he's holding an Andrew Novak ticket on top of it. So hopefully someone inside the Pat Mayo Experience office can hit a big winner this weekend. I'm hoping it's Pottinger because, you know, I like my money. And if he wins, plus the DraftKings, I can't lose for like the next 3 years in golf betting. I'll probably end up donating it all back because I did that somewhat on Thursday. I tried to go for the 50K up top in Showdown, and it was the first time, I think, in 8 years, and maybe ever, that the South Course played easier than the North Course because of the massive wind gusts that came in. They actually had to shut down the round, which was kind of ridiculous, although some of the balls were not staying on the green. When you put them down, they would just start blowing away. So I guess if that's the case, then you have to slow down play and have to suspend it until that stops happening, but it was pretty soft. Didn't like it. But I had guys left on the course. I was like, hey, maybe they'll suspend this until there's no one and my guys can take advantage. They did not. It was a tough day. So it was like the one time ever to play guys from the South Course in Showdown. I wouldn't expect that to happen too many other times throughout the course of time. And now Torrey Pines is going to be hosting the Genesis tournament in 3 weeks' time. So Pebble, Waste Management in Phoenix, and then moving from Riviera to Torrey Pines. That's probably why a lot of the bigger names withdrew before the tournament actually started. Now, in my mind, I would want to play the tournament twice, just get acclimated with the course, return in 3 weeks, and have an advantage on the field. I guess that's not really a thing since so many of the top-end players did not want to do that who were listed in the field this week for Torrey Pines. So we got a fun sweat on our hands, and listen, I ended up on Pottinger. I made these lineups all at fantasynational.com. It's where I'm doing my walkthrough today as well, so you'll be able to see it visually up on the screen. fantasynational.com/Mayo will get you 20% off, and you'll probably want to use it to generate some lineups and do your research with me as we walk completely through everything. On to Pebble Beach. Last year was supposed to be the mecca of what we wanted from a broadcast of Pebble Beach. For years, it was the worst tournament to watch on television. It was absolutely god-awful. If anyone has ever sat through a Saturday round at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am on Saturday when you have Tony Romo in the booth after he's walking through playing his rounds, and people breaking down the slow motion Konica Minolta vision swing speed of Larry the Cable Guy. It is just absolutely what no one wants to see, yet somehow the broadcast team at CBS thinks that this is what we want to see. But this is such a huge part of the PGA schedule. You have Pebble Beach, probably the most iconic course outside of Augusta National that we see every single year on the PGA Tour. Casual viewers will tune in simply because it is Pebble Beach. And this tournament was just a throwaway. Like, Spieth was really the only guy playing this by the end of it. Now it's a signature event. So we get rid of the goofy 54-hole cut. So that's out of the window. There's no cut anymore because they shrunk the field from 156 to 80 players. It is a signature event. They are playing for $25 million of what is guaranteed money because there is no cut. All of the best players in the world are here, except for Xander Schauffele, because he is out again with a rib injury this time around. And you get to take advantage with 3 rounds at Pebble Beach and just 1 at Spyglass. So they'll alternate the first 2 days between Spyglass with their Pro-Am partners and Pebble Beach with their Pro-Am partners. Then the Pro-Am is over. It's only 36 holes. We don't have to see Bill Murray on the weekend, although I still somewhat enjoy Bill Murray, like for 25 seconds of broadcast time for a round when he's yucking it up with whoever. But if that's what we lose because we get real golfers hitting real golf shots at Pebble Beach on Saturday and Sunday, I'm willing to concede that I'll go with no cut, a limited field, and no Bill Murray. That is fine by me. So last year was supposed to be the unveiling of this. It was a signature event. They moved Pebble Beach to the bye week between the AFC and NFC championship games and the Super Bowl. This was going to be the week that people who were casual golf fans finally tuned into golf, or at least that was the hope. And that remains the hope this year because it's set up in exactly the same way. Mother Nature did not comply with that whatsoever. There was awful winds, awful rains. There were mudslides at the course, and they had to cancel the event after 3 rounds. It was the first time an event was shortened to 54 holes since the 2016 Zurich Classic. For some context of how long ago that was, the Zurich Classic wasn't a team event then. I remember watching that event. They had to go to a 3-man playoff. I believe it was Lovemark, Ben Ann, and Chris Stroud. I remember Shaughnessy hit Chris Stroud at that tournament. And Jason Day and I think it was Justin Rose were the shot out of the playoffs. They were very clearly coming to win that event, and then it just got shortened, so they were not eligible to play in that 3-man playoff to decide who was going to end up being the victor of Louisiana. I guess it wouldn't be the Louisiana Purchase at that point. I mean, now we're just going back to Franco-American relations from the 1800s. Either way, we don't need to dig into that here. We need to dig in to Pebble Beach. But we have this opportunity. Wyndham Clark won last year. He shot a 60 on Saturday. That was good enough. A bunch of people cashed in bigly with the Wyndham Clark outright winner because people could see that there was already chatter going on during the final round that there wasn't going to be any golf on Sunday. So a lot of people just started betting Wyndham Clark to win it, like 2-1 or whatever it was. There was a bunch of top 5 parlays. I believe FanDuel ended up paying them out for all of it. And people cashed in because there was no tournament. People saw that coming. The books had to honor what was going on because there were still guys on the course in the 3rd round. So all those bets were eligible. Anything I think that was made post golf being done on Saturday, I think those were voided. They could void those in the terms of services because no golf was left to play at that point. So any future bet, technically, which a golf bet would be, did not have to be honored. And I think that most did not honor that. I think Wiley really cashed in on that. If I recall that correctly, I'd have to go back and dig into that. I'll have my entire preview article that'll be up in the newsletter. So please sub to that for free. I'll also have some more details on the live Pat Mayo experience. We're going to do a Cuss Corner live in Toronto this summer. We're aiming for the week of the Canadian Open, the Saturday of the Canadian Open. I'm trying to find a venue right now, and I'll have all that information both on the show and I'll have it in the newsletter as well. I would highly recommend everyone come. We're going to try to get a really big space. I would love to see everyone there. We'll do the show, then we'll do like a meet and greet and have some drinks afterwards. It should be a lot of fun. And then, hell, if you want to go to the Canadian Open on Sunday and maybe go sweat a ticket, that is almost perfectly in the cards for what we want to do. So Wyndham Clark wins last year after that 60. He just sun-runned everyone, basically, with just putting. He just made every single putt at Pebble Beach. And that's the sneaky thing about Pebble Beach, is that this really can turn itself into a putting contest, especially between You have to make your short putts. More on that in a little bit. But just the mid-range putting at this course. It's one of the shortest courses on the PGA Tour. It has the smallest greens of any course. Pebble Beach Golf Links on the PGA Tour, 3,500 square feet. So there's going to be a lot of up and downs, but it's really difficult to make short putts. Riviera, Pebble Beach, and Torrey Pines. If you're watching Torrey Pines on Saturday and you see a bunch of guys miss 4-foot putts, it's because that happens a lot at Torrey Pines. It happens even more at Pebble Beach. So mid-range putting and making those like 17-footers becomes crucial, and that's essentially what this boils down to. You hit a bunch of greens in regulation, you're good to go. Good short game is also necessary for this event, because you don't want to leave yourself with those 7-footers, because you're going to miss a lot of 7-footers. You're going to miss a lot of 5-footers this week. Not a lot. Like, the guys that make the most are the ones who are going to win. But a good short game where you can get that ball within like the 3-foot circle of the hole is going to save you a lot of just missed short putts. Make those, hammer them home, and you should see yourself near the very top of the leaderboard. Or at least not near the very bottom, because that's how you can get yourself out of this tournament pretty quickly. As I mentioned, in terms of the field, it's 80 players right now. You still have guys from the Aon Swing 5 that can still qualify right now through the Farmers Insurance Open. My guy Pottinger, if he wins, he'll be in at Pebble Beach. That'll be nice. And we'll all be so much richer because of it. I feel like I used up, like I said, so much of my run good on Wednesday that there's absolutely no chance that happens. But hey, maybe Ludwig storms back and he ends up winning. And that would just be nice for a lot of people in the community as well. But 80 players, no cut, and we're getting Rory for the first time this year as well. Now, Rory won the DP World Tour Championship in November over in the Middle East. He was T4 in Dubai 2 weeks ago. Obviously, he has a TGL clash on Monday with Tiger Woods. Then he's off out west to go play in this tournament. But it'll be his first PGA Tour start of the season. So he was T4 in his one start. That was a backdoor top 5 from Rory over in the Middle East. Joining him, the guy who was second at the DP World Tour Championship in November, and he finished with the top 20 in Dubai to kick off the season, is Rasmus Højgaard, who is in all of these elevated events or in signature events because he was first in the DP World Tour money list and points qualification standings for the PGA Tour coming into this year. So we're going to see a lot of Rasmus, and Rasmus played some excellent golf in 2024. It is not Nikolai, who was in all these tournaments a year ago and came second at Torrey Pines a year ago. He is not in the field. Rasmus's twin brother is in the field. Now, as you may recall, Nikolai was a part of that Ryder Cup team in Italy. Rasmus was not. They are still both excellent players. So Rasmus should be on your radar as well after finishing off a very good season. And we get Tommy for the first time in the U.S. this season as well. He made the cut in Dubai in his only start so far in 2025. This is now his 8th full year on the PGA Tour in search of his very first win in America. Maybe someday only it'll happen. You know, of course, we all lose money and root for Tommy Ladd every single time, and it just has not happened. Maybe this will be the year for Tommy Fleetwood. Now, there's a couple other names, pretty substantial ones, that are making their return this week from injury. Scotty Scheffler is back in the field. At least he is committed to it as of right now. His first start in 2025 since cutting his hand, I guess, on Christmas Day, making ravioli or something like that. Seems kind of strange. I am worried about this in his first start back. Maybe it is nothing to worry about, but when you think short game, you think hands. If you don't have the proper grip, he said he hasn't been able to work out like he normally has been able to do. Only lower body workouts for Scotty Scheffler, really build up them thighs, really get some more power into the ball. Maybe he's increased his swing speed, but I do worry about any hand injury, wrist injury, whatever it might be for a golfer, and how much of that touch and feel needs to come back first. He's going to open as the betting favorite in this field. I will not be betting Scotty Scheffler as the betting favorite in this field. Now, he plays really well. He's the best player in this field on small greens, anything 5,000 square feet and below. So everything points in his favor. He was like a shot or two back of the lead going into Sunday a year ago as well, where we didn't get a chance to showcase all of this like stacked leaderboard at the very top. But it's a wait and see process. I'll probably full fade him on DraftKings as well. This is a tournament where I've either had a lot of success or no success whatsoever in the past. And I'm curious to see what the sentiment is going to be surrounding Scheffler. Maybe he's absolutely fine. Maybe he wins by 10 strokes. That is definitely in the range of outcomes. Actually, probably not at Pebble Beach because it's so much of a putting contest that you're going to see some weirdo outlier. Like prior to last year, I'm just going to throw it out. It was only 3 rounds. It's very difficult to gauge. But it was the first time it was a signature event. It was the first time it was only the 2-course rotation. I guess it was a 2-course rotation in 2021 during the COVID year as well, but that's just kind of weird. There was no fans in the stands. That one's kind of a throwout as well. Normally you see Americans win here, and you either see one of the betting favorites, like 30-1 or below, or higher, I suppose. Like Phil won here. He beat Casey. They were both below. Spieth is one as a favorite. Day is one as a favorite. Berger won at 16-1 at this course. Or you go to the other end of the spectrum, where you get like Von Taylor at 400-1, Ted Potter Jr. at 600-1, because it's wedges and it's putting. Normally, you do not see so many of the top-end players play a course this short. Now, we all saw them play when Gary Woodland won the U.S. Open in 2018. At the top of the list that year, you had a lot of bombers. It was Woodland, it was Brooks, it was Rahm. Victor won the U.S. Am at this course, split between Spyglass as well in 2018, and he was the low Am at Pebble Beach that year as well, in his first, come on to the scene big moment for Victor Hovland. It's funny to think that doesn't feel like that long ago, and it's been 7 years at this point for Victor Hovland. Morikawa, he played in the Am. He was an amateur in the field at the U.S. Open that year as well and played really well. The problem is, when you're looking at that, is this isn't going to be USGA rough. It's going to be Pro-Am rough. So you can hit out of the rough, no problem here. You can kind of spray the ball wherever you want. And because the course is so short, so many guys just aren't going to be hitting drivers off the tee. So you need guys that can hit wedges pretty well. So you're going to have one of the par 5s, that's a layup. You would like your guys to be able to get there in 2. It is not the end-all, be-all, end of the world if you can. And so many of the field can get there in 2 at this point, with some of the par 5s being so short. But like wedges, putting, that's really what you're looking for, which makes it more akin to like what we saw at Heritage, where Scheffler ended up winning. Scheffler won everything last year, so that's difficult to parse through whether or not he's going to do that again. But we've seen some of the shorter hitters end up winning here. One thing of note, and I know he's not in the field, but if you're looking for comp courses and how to correlate this a little bit, I looked at and this will be in the article as well, on X, on the Mayo Media newsletter. Please go sub to that. Free in the description right now, all right? Daniel Berger has 4 wins on the PGA Tour, and they've all come at courses with greens that measure 5,000 square feet or smaller, so the small greens. So he's won at Pebble Beach, he has won at Colonial, and he has won twice at TPC Southwind. And those are, I think, 3 of the smallest 7 green complexes in all of the PGA Tour's annual rotation. I just found that really interesting to consider, that maybe there are other people who just mix between those courses really well, and the strategy that you need to employ when you start playing at courses with smaller greens. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it was just hot Berger weeks, and maybe it's independent to Berger how it is. Just thought that was an interesting tidbit that I found when I was digging through the research so far this week. The other name that is coming back, along with Scottie Scheffler, following off-season wrist surgery, a man who is sponsored by AT&T, which is why he may be pressed back into the field this week, although he's already committed to Phoenix next week as well, is Jordan Spieth, the biggest draw in American golf right now. Even though he might not be good anymore, he is still the biggest draw. He got 1 of 4 sponsors exemptions because he did not qualify for the signature events because of both the injury and not finishing inside the top 50 of the FedEx Cup standings a year ago. So he and Ricky both have sponsors exemptions. They're both going to receive sponsors exemptions as long as they can for any of these events, because those are 2 guys that you want to have on TV. If you have an event and you want to sell tickets and you want it to rate well on TV, having those 2 guys there is much better than not having them there. So they're going to end up being in the field for a lot of these. The other 2 went to Gary Woodland. That makes a lot of sense. He won the U.S. Open at this course the last time it was contested at this course. Put him back in. Plus, he's coming off a brain injury, so get him in the field. And then you have Keith Mitchell as well, who was a first-round leader here 3 or 4 years ago, I think. It didn't go to Peter Malnati, although I think Malnati might actually be in the tournament anyway. He just gets it. I mean, he did win last year, so I guess that makes sense. But with the first-round leader notes, I have those in the article as well for each of the past 5 years between Pebble and Spyglass. If that is an angle that you want to take, you can see some of the names that cross over. See, Kim is someone who pops up in a lot of those. I think he's been inside the top 3 twice at Pebble Beach in the past 4 years. And I remember the year that I won very big at this tournament was the year that Phil won and had Siwoo and Stallings inside the top 5. So there's a Siwoo finish where he finished inside the top 5. He's been a bit off so far this year, though. But with Spieth coming back, how do we judge someone coming off of wrist surgery? Now, normally you'd say, oh, they rush back. This is going to be a problem. He's going to have to work through it. And that still very much might be on the table for Jordan Spieth. But it's been a long time. Like, he took the entire offseason off. He's taking the entire first month off. He could be fine. This is always a course where Spieth plays well. It kind of plays into what he does really well. I mean, he almost killed himself on that cliff that one time, and when I bet on him, he got outrun by Tom Hoge for a win when Hoge made birdie on that long, 33-foot putt on the 17th hole. I've had some good results at this tournament and some real heartbreaks. That year that I think that Hoge won was also the same year I had Nate Lashley, Nasty Nate, at a really big number, and he made a 7 on a par 3 coming home. He's like, oh my God, man, what are we doing here? He had to claw back just to get the top 5 each way for me that year. But with Spieth, I think this is a good ramp-up week. I don't know what I'm going to do with him. I don't know where his odds come in. Knowing that it's Jordan Spieth, he's probably going to be 40-1 in this field, so you absolutely do not want to bet that. Even if he wins, you can still call if you bet Spieth at 40-1 in this field and you win, congratulations, you got as lucky as I did on Wednesday, which... Listen, you'll always take luck over being super sharp and losing. I understand that. It would just be a bad bet. Now, if he's 200-1, maybe he's a bet, but he probably comes in a lot because of the name strength and people wanting to bet on Jordan Spieth in his first week back. It's just because he hasn't been available, especially with so many casual people coming in. With no football coming in, they'll bet Scheffler and they'll bet Spieth, even if it is their first week back. I would just be a little bit more pensive, but hey, maybe on DraftKings, Scheffler and Spieth are the stack to go to if people are being having a cowardly nature, let's put it that way, like I am doing right now, that maybe they're super contrarian and they go off and they win here. Who knows? I mean, if I knew who was going to win golf tournaments, I wouldn't be doing the show. I would be retired to an island by now after hitting Nick Dunlap at 700-1 last year at the American. All I would have had to do was just bet the first 6 tournaments of last year and I would never have to work again. You'd never see me again. Although I do like doing the show. So I probably still would do it regardless of what goes on. Even if no one watched, I would probably still do it because I enjoy doing these research shows so much. Anyway, that is the quick preview for Pebble Beach. FantasyNational.com/Mayo gets you 20% off. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the TGL this Monday right now. And after that, we're looking at the course, we're looking at stats and seeing if we can find ourselves a winner. Welcome to the TGL presented by SoFi, golf's newest league. It's sharp. It's electric. How is it sharp? How is it electric? Good questions. Try this on for size. 2 hours of hammer-dropping, overtime, forcing playoffs on the line golf with 24 of the best players from the PGA Tour. This Monday, Jupiter Links Golf Club versus Boston Common Golf. Tiger Woods, Kevin Kisner, and Tom Kim taking on Rory McIlroy, Keegan Bradley, and Adam Scott. This isn't your average Sunday pickup game because you'll want to bet against the Jupiter Links. Tune in each week for TGL only on ESPN. Keep up. It's golf. As mentioned before, this is a 2-course rotation for the first 2 rounds, and each of the professionals will be paired up with their amateur partner. Then there is still no cut, but the weekend rounds 3 and 4 will be contested simply with the professionals at Pebble Beach Golf Links. So 3 rounds at Pebble Beach Golf Links. You know the course very well. It's a par 72, a shade under 7,000 yards. POA greens, very difficult greens to navigate the closer you get to the hole. 116 bunkers. There is Shot Tracker at Pebble Beach, and there is a full complement of cameras, which is just so nice. And as mentioned before, the smallest greens on the PGA Tour, 3,500 square feet. There is one water hazard on the course. You might know it as the Pacific Ocean. Do not hit it in there. That is a drop. And even if you have to go play from the beach down there, still not very good. The average distance of the 4 par 3s is 170 yards. 2 of the 4 toughest holes on the course, 5 and 12, are the longer par 3s. Last year, Wyndham Clark was only even on the par 3s and was still able to shoot a 60 on that day. Those are tread water holes. 17 you can get away with if you need to make a birdie coming down the stretch, but realistically, if you can just play those at par, 1 under for the week, you're going to be in a very good position. Do not give away the tournament on those par 3s. There are 10 par 4s, an average distance of 413 yards. 4 of the most difficult 6 on the course are par 4s that come within the first 10 holes when you play the course in order, 1 through 18, which have an over par rate of 18%. Clark ran off 6 straight under par holes in round 3 from hole 6 to 11, including a run of 4 straight par 4s from hole 8 to hole 11 in his win a year ago. Like I said, he made putts from everywhere. It was like 300 feet of putts. It was insane to watch. The par fives are where you need to beat this place up. The two front nine par fives are must gets. They both have eagle rates over 2.5% and both have birdie rates over 45%. Clark eagled both the par fives on the front and birdied 2 on the back 9, and the 60 was 3 strokes better than anyone that day. If you're looking for a showdown streak, it's difficult to parse between Pebble and Spyglass because good scores can happen at either of those courses. Previously, it was Monterey Peninsula where you wanted to play. It does feel like both have bogey opportunities. It's not a lock by any means. You can mix and match if you want to, although I still think doing a full course stack, whichever one that you take, it could be either one. I found that Pebble Beach does give up more birdies overall and generates lower scores by and large every other year kind of thing. So you can split it, go 70% full Pebble Beach, DraftKings, round 1 stack, and then 25% Spyglass if that's what you wanted to do. But it's designed almost to keep us from leveraging any start. If you're going back front to back, you run into holes 8, 9, and 10, all of which rank amongst the 5 toughest on the course. Wyndham Clark did it, as I mentioned last year, but there is a 0.1% chance that you will birdie 8, 9, and 10 in succession for that birdie streak. If you go back to front, you get access to holes 18 and 1, which are both amongst the 7th easiest, but to go streaking, you need to either birdie 2 or 17, which are the 2nd and 3rd toughest holes on the course. Now, Hoagie birdied 17 on his way to do it, but we see a lot of bogeys on that hole. So you're really not playing for streaks at Pebble Beach if that's the way that you want to go to it. Now, Spyglass is a par 72, 7,041 yards, POA greens again. It's only 62 bunkers on the course, but there are 4 holes with water in play and 5,000 square foot average green sizes. There is no shot tracker at Spyglass. At least there wasn't last year. Maybe they've done us a solid and instituted it this year. That would just be a nice surprise. Now, because this tournament will be played exclusively at Pebble over the weekend, we'll have full shot tracker, which means you want to be using the best app in the biz, which is the Fantasy National app. You can get it for iOS or Android if you are a member of fantasynational.com. You can find the banner at the very top of the screen on Fantasy National. Once you log in, you click it and boom, you get it. I had people hit me up over the weekend and be like, how have I not been using this? Because this is everything I want from a leaderboard app. Like, we put a lot of effort into designing this and to make sure that it's very functional for everyone. I highly recommend to get it. Even if you don't want to use the tools at Fantasy National, you just want to use the leaderboard, it's still well worth the subscription, honestly. FantasyNational.com/Mayo. The average par 3 distance at Spyglass is 171 yards. There are 4 of them because it is a par 72. 3 of the 4 most par holes on the course are the par 3s. And the last par 3, when playing it in order, is the easiest, a 21% birdie rate, the only par 3 over a 14% birdie rate. So you can close making an easy birdie, a somewhat easy birdie, 1/5 of the field making birdie on that hole. Par 4s, 10 of them on the course, average distance 408 yards. 7 of the 8 toughest holes at Spyglass, including 3 of the 4 hardest, are par 4s coming on the second half of the front 9. Clark had 2 birdies on the par 4s in his lone Spyglass round. Rory took that weird penalty after dominating Spyglass last year, and that was just the end of Rory for the week. The 4 par 5s, 566 for the 5 easiest holes on the course. Much like Pebble Beach, 2 of them carry an eagle rate north of 2%, and that is where you'll want to take advantage. If you can dominate the par 5s, beat up on the short par 4s between the both courses, that is where you are going to be this week if you're going to find yourself near the very top of the leaderboard. The DFS advantage is somewhat limited, but by going back to front, you do get access to a short par 4, number 17, and a par 5, number 1, that if you can birdie 18 coming in, then you will find yourself with a streak at Spyglass, but that's really the only way to go if you want to split hairs. If it comes down to a coin toss situation, that is the route that you want to go. Let's go over to fantasynational.com right now and check out the just different splits. We only have shot link data from the course at Pebble Beach. Even if we sort by top 5, you can see how this goes. It's an irons and putting course. The Bombers do have somewhat mitigated impact this week outside of the U.S. Open that we saw, and that's a good rule of thumb for the U.S. Open because we thought that was going to be the case at Pinehurst and at Pebble Beach the last 2 times it was played. It was not. The Bombers dominated again. Once you start growing out the rough, there wasn't rough at Pinehurst, but you had the waist area. So a lot of guys were missing fairways anyway. Then when you have rough that's difficult to hit out of, then you just want to be down as far as possible so you can use a smaller club. You're not hitting 4 irons out of the rough and watching them burn up the fairway. And then you're left to your short game where mistakes can happen at U.S. Opens. Now with a bit of a softer green, slower green at Pebble Beach, because of the Pro-Am, the rough is cut way down like we saw at American Express. It's got to be pretty easy, to be perfectly honest with you. So approaches, especially shorter clubs coming in or the long ones for the par 5 and putting are going to be the 2 most important things. Around the green does play a big impact because the greens are so small that you're going to have to get it up and down. You don't need any blue chew in your life to do it. But if you're like Hideki or Spieth, maybe you can chip in a few times, and that will be the route that you want to go. You can see the impact is made the most on the par 5s in terms of strokes gained per hole composition. This is where it gets really interesting. So you have, and I'm looking at Pebble Beach right now, you have your par 4s 350 to 400. The whole composition over time is where you're going to find that. You're going to have a lot of them on the course, and then you have the easier ones 400 to 450, and then you start getting into the par 4s that are over 500 yards, 450 to 500. This is where the course has its teeth. Tread water there, tread water on the par 3s, and don't give away shots on the easier par 4s. And you see the shot distribution, it is pretty even. The plurality of the shots this week are going to come from 100 to 125 yards, 21.8% at Pebble Beach. That is almost unheard of. So a lot of wedges, and then on the par 5s, you're going to get like the longer approaches, the 175 and the 200 plus are mainly on the par 3s and par 5s. The par 4s are all going to be dominated. Like even 6% of the shots are coming from 75 to 100. And like some of those are layups on the par 5 on the back at Pebble Beach, but like wedge fest, man, wedge fest and birdies. So a lot of what we talked about at Century applies. A lot of what we talked about at Sony weirdly applies as well. And even American Express, you can kind of parse some of these guys going through. Driving accuracy, very high because it's a club down course. Green and regulation because of the small greens, a lot lower than possible. Code Mayo at Underdog will give you a deposit bonus of up to $1,000, and it will give you a free pick to go with the pick'em game. But these are some things that you can exploit a little bit if they start offering the driving accuracy, the fairways hit, and the green and regulation percentages. Target guys, if you want to play a lot of entries, go higher on driving accuracy and lower on greens and regulation percentage, and you can anti-correlate that way and really boost up your odds. So that's an interesting angle that you can take. 3 putts are lower here than normal, but they should be a lot lower than this with the size of the greens. That's always what we see at Heritage. Harbour Town has these super small greens, so you don't see a lot of 3 putts because you're not putting from 125 feet away. It's just very casual. But because there are so many short putts missed at Pebble Beach, there's about an average amount of 3 putts, which is not great. Average driving distance way down at Pebble Beach at 268 yards. That's almost 20 yards shorter, 15 yards shorter than your average tour event. Again, it's a club down course. And of course, average proximity to the hole and greens and regulation is going to be lower because, again, the greens are a lot smaller. And where it's a green and regulation, you guys just missed the green in spots where they would be 60 feet away from the hole. Let's take a look at the past winners of this course. I had mentioned previously that Windy C. Wyndham Clark was the winner a year ago. He beat Ludwig by a stroke. Pavon was 2 back, and then you had this glut of Dietrich, Hubbard, Day, Hoagie, Scheffler, and Justin Thomas all up there. Scheffler and Justin Thomas and Hideki are 3 of the players that play courses with smaller greens the best of anyone in this field. If we're thinking about just pure course history, Rosie won it 2 years ago, but Cantlay's been awesome at this course, and hopefully he gets put down in the odds a little bit more. He likely won't because of just what we've seen from him so far this season, and a lot, but with all the big names back minus Xander, that you might be able to catch him at like a 22. I think that would be a pretty good bet on Patrick Cantlay. If you can catch Justin Thomas and Cantlay outside of 20 to 1, because I think that Morikawa, well, it's difficult with Morikawa because you don't see the great performances. He was T15 here a year ago. He's another one who plays short courses really well, and he had hit his wedges excellently in the past. And he, again, I mentioned as an amateur, he played really well here in the U.S. Open. California guy, has done very well at these courses over time. He only has the one start in an elevated event here over the past 5 years, but he is someone that I could see being pushed up the list, who I do like that if he did open a little bit lower, I would like him at this course a little bit more, I think, than a lot of people. So the past winners overall, you had Wyndham Clark at -17 through 3 rounds. The year before that, it was Justin Rose at 18-1. He won at 35-1 that year. You can see he beat Brendan Todd, Peter Malnati, Denny McCarthy, Keith Mitchell, Kevin Pendrith, Bo Hostler. That was a fun year. There was like nobody in the field that year. The year before that, it was my guy, Hollywood Hoagie, beat Spieth that year. He was 60-1 as a winner. Daniel Berger won at 14-1 the year before that. He is obviously not in the field because he has not played well enough in order to qualify. Mav was second. Spieth was third. Cantlay was T3 as well. You saw Jason Day, who's a former winner here. Chuck Hoffman, Max Homa. Tom Hoagie ends up with the 12th place finish. That was the year before he ended up winning. We have seen a lot of course history over the years play itself through. You can see that Akshay was up there, T30 in his debut at the course, although he's another one who plays slow greens really well, and these are slow greens. I do kind of like Akshay a little bit, even following his WD at Farmers last week. So Berger won at 14-1. Nick Taylor won the year before that, outdueling Phil on the final day, just kind of dominating everyone. He held the first round lead, and he just kind of held on. You see Malnati up there as well. Malnati has 3 top 15 finishes in the past 5 years at this course, which is kind of crazy. So you can see that the course history angle does play itself out pretty well. I think it is 13 of the past 16 winners. Even if we'll take Wyndham Clark out, had a top 10 at this event before winning this event. You can see that even Wyndham Clark was T20 here in 2020 before his win a year ago. But Nick Taylor was 125-1. Phil won the year before that. That was the year with Stallings and Siwoo. Inside, he went off at 28-1. I remember that vividly because I bet him. TPJ won at 600-1. I bet him live at 125-1. The year before that, that was very nice. He won 3 clear at Day, Mickelson, Reevy, and Dustin Johnson. Played in that final group and just Dustin put it long on 6, and that was the end of him. Spieth won the year before that. He won by 4 over Smelly Kelly Craft at -19. He was one of the favorites. And Von Taylor the year before that won at 400-1, beating Phil by a stroke at -17. He made everything. I mean, he picked up 10.2 strokes tee to green. That was almost 3 strokes better than anyone on the field. I just vividly recall his 65-foot putt on the back nine being like, oh, this is really going to happen. His clubs didn't show up that week. He had to play with rental clubs and was still able to do it. Last year at Pebble Beach, Mathieu Pavon, coming off his win at Torrey Pines, was the first round leader at Pebble Beach GC. He birdied the first 2 holes and went off. And then it was Siwoo and Morikawa, 66 and 67. Dietrich was a 63 at Spyglass. That was first round leader over there. Patrick Cantlay was 64. So just keep that in mind when you're looking through everything that we see at Pebble Beach this week. Now, I've already cobbled together, if we just strokes gained model, the same one that I kind of use every single week, where it's a bit weighted towards strokes gained total, and then approach, just to get recent form on your side. We can lower total a little bit, I guess, to kind of even everything out. You can see that on the screen right now. Just try to level everything out to see who has been the best. If we're just looking for... Let's see here. If we look at the past 36 rounds overall, dating back in time, we see Scheffler, Grazerman, Morikawa, Rory McIlroy, Hideki, Sungjae, Spawn, Adam Scott, and Sam Burns are inside the top 10 of strokes gained overall over the past 36 rounds. But we can break this down a little bit more if we just go to the Pebble Beach model that I have. Turn that off. Manage models. Let's see here. I already turned it on. What am I doing here? Just go to Pebble Beach, Pat. There you go. So Pebble Beach. I'm going to pin that one for myself and make it past 36 rounds. And when I take a look at the model, you can see, and you can always adjust this to whatever you want on fantasynational.com/Mayo. Make it easy on yourself. Strokes gained approach, 16% off the tee, 10 around the green, 17%. Normally approach would be higher, but I have other proximity stats and opportunities gained, which are approach stats. So I didn't want to juice it up that much and just really overweight that one stat. So I have those 3, the tee to green stats, par 5s, 12%, 300 350 to 400 yard par fours, 12%, 450 or 400 to 450 at 6%, proximity 175 to 200 at 11%, putting 6%, opportunities gained at 9%. I'm going to change this around a little bit. I'm going to up putting to 10%. I'm going to lower 175 to 200 down to 5% and add in that key range of 100 to 125. Hell, you could just do the entire process over if you wanted to and just include a lot of these proximity ranges, but we'll wait that out at around 5% and see how that goes and just update the model and see if it gives us anyone else new at the top. So overall, past 36 rounds of that Pebble model power rankings, Scheffler, Morikawa, Hideki, Spawn, and Harry Hall. This is a spot where I could see Harry Hall playing really well. Honestly, I don't know if he's ever actually played here in the past, but that is the great thing about having a database at your fingertips, that Harry Hall, you can just search him by name and see how he's been doing. Obviously, he putts a ton. That's kind of his jam. You can see he's gained in his past 4 weighted events that have been measured. That doesn't include a 13th finish and a 14th place finish at 2 events during the swing season. He's gained over 4.5 strokes. So that's good news. Let's see. Pebble Beach, has he played? He was 34th here 2 years ago, and it's underneath Pro-Am the other way. So he's played it once. He came T34. And how did he do? He, didn't drive it well, hit his approaches pretty well, couldn't really make a ton of putts. You do kind of have to get used to the putting here, and it might not be a great look because of what we saw from some of the course history numbers, that you do have to get acclimated to these greens. But it's nice to see he had a top 10 at Sony and Century to start off the year. Now in a big boy event, he's going to be pushed back farther down the list, but he hits his wedges pretty goddamn well, and he can putt the lights out if that's what you're looking for. You can see over the past 36, great wedge game. He plays these like mid-range par 4s really well, plays the short ones really well, and he's number 1 around the green in that time and top 5 in putting. That's kind of the method that you want to see. Over that time, putting-wise, Grazerman, Mac Hughes, Burns, Hall, Lauer, Todd Father, Morikawa, Adam Scott, Fitzpatrick, Beau Hossler, and then Victor Perez. Beau Hossler's actually had some pretty decent runs at this tournament. Vic Perez is currently an alternate in this field, although he still might get in on the Aon 5 if that's the route that you want to take. But overall, those were the guys that we had. Then you have Finau, who just absolutely flamed out. Once we update this for the Farmers, once that tournament has concluded, it'll only be 1 round for him, and I think he actually played pretty well at the South Course in round 1. So he got blown up at the easy North Course in round 2 and ended up missing the cut. So maybe he doesn't fall out that much, but Thomas is someone that I am very interested in this week. I wasn't on him at American Express. I have not bet him so far this season, but the numbers have been pretty good. He has 2 top 2 finishes in his past 3 starts. That's what we're looking for here. Of note, too, I was thinking about, where does Hideki play well? And, he's won at the Sony Open in the past. And I started to think, who played well at the Sony Open this year? It's Thomas has won at the Sony Open in the past. And in fact, he holds the course record there. We just saw Eric Cole finish inside the top 5. He was top 5 or top 6 at the Zozo. Siwoo has won the Sony Open. He was top 6 at the Zozo last year. JJ Spawn could have won Sony this year at a top 5 finish. He was 6th at the Zozo. Echeverria ended up in the playoff at the Zozo, at Sony. He won Zozo. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I know I'll probably forget by the time that we get around to Sony next year, or even looking at the Zozo, but Sony has had a lot of kind of direct correlation of what is going on. You see Harry Hall, he had a top 10. He was in T13 at the Zozo. Lee Hodges had a really nice run at the Sony this year. He was top 20 at the Zozo. Maybe it's just similar fields. I don't know. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. That stuck out in my mind once I started seeing the names go through of Zozo when I was digging into this a little bit more. The other one to look at would probably be Bermuda. Harry Hall didn't play Bermuda this year. Who would in this field would have played Bermuda? Is Todd back in the field? The Todd? Oh, yeah, there's the Todd. He's playing this week. And he's won in Bermuda before, and we've seen him have pretty decent results. Not so much in Bermuda this time around. So Campos won there. Novak was second. Both those guys are in the field. Is Hubba Hubbard playing? He was top 5 here last year. Again, that's just a short course with slow and small greens that can be very wind affected. So yeah, Hubbard was inside is playing in the field this week. He was inside. He was 3rd. Last time, Lauer was inside the top 5. He's had some good run over the years at Pebble Beach as well. So just some different names to look for if you're looking towards the bottom of the list. You're just not going to get a lot of crossover between a swing season event that has a very weak field versus an elevated event where all the best players are playing. But if you can sneak yourself into some of these fields, you do see some of the players do well at both. I don't know if I'd go to Campos. I don't even know how he's been doing now that he has his full card. I doubt well. Has he made a cut yet? No. He was like dead last. How did he finish again? Dead last? Oh, yeah. He had a great week, though. Thanks. At the Century. But maybe this is a tournament where he can get it going a little bit more, although you either see him pop up and do well or absolutely miss the cut. You probably want to stay away from him on DraftKings and basically whatever else you want to do just because he's so volatile. And has he played this in the past? Yeah, he played it once in 2021 and missed the cut. But as like a top 20 bet, knowing he's probably going to be the last guy in the field, it does seem that if he makes the cut and is in contention, he does come inside the top 20. Those guys can be very valuable in the betting markets for some people if that's how you want to stack things up. I mean, a top 40 in an 80-man field probably won't pay so well, but if you play it as a 50-50, you probably get Campos at like plus 250 to come inside the top 40. And this is a course where he could play well. Like it does play more to his strengths despite having far less talent than most players in the field. Let's shrink down the size of this right now. And we'll take a look at the past 12 rounds and just to see if there's any new names in terms of current form who pop up a little bit more. So Morikawa, amongst everything that we've parsed out, ranks number 1, Hall 2, Justin Thomas 3, Sungjae, Scotty, although Scotty hasn't played yet in 2025. Eastlake is probably the last tournament that we have on record for him with strokes gained data. And yes, that it is the playoffs. And I mean, he only generally plays in big events. So you're only going to get the best of the best strokes. And that's how good he is. Henley is 6. Hubbard is 7. So Hubbard needs to be shortlist. Hubba Hubbard. Shout out to and thoughts with Nathan Hubbard, who is, has been a guest on the show. I've guested on his show, Fairway Rolling on the Ringer Podcast Network. He lost his home in the Palisades fires. So we're thinking about Nathan and thinking about you and your brother for next week at Pebble Beach. If your boots on the ground, maybe that's an opportunity to get a nice big win for Mark Hubbard. And again, he was very close a year ago. He was T3 at this tournament. If we search Mark Hubbard, he had a chance to win this going into the final day. He was very much there. And again, he's one of those great wedge players. He's very good with his putter. He's added some distance over the years as well. So the past 3 years at Pebble Beach, he was 4th, which was a signature event, only 3 rounds, 20th the year before that, 33rd the year before that, and even in the Pro-Am, he's just basically played this every single year. So he was 55th, 62nd, 26th. He's a better player now than he has been in the past, at least over the past few years. And really, it's been around the green in putting that he has done so well at this course over the years. And if he could just find his irons this year, maybe not, you probably don't want to bet Mark Hubbard 150 to 1 to win this tournament. But again, a top 10, a top 20 DraftKings play, I'd feel more comfortable with Mark Hubbard in my DraftKings lineup than I would with Rafael Campos. Where's Nico? Nico as well. Rates out 20th in the model. His putting has been lights out, but the wedge game, top 20 in this field of studs. Opportunities gained, top 15, and the around the green play has been really good as well. It's just if he brings his hot putter along with him, he can putt the lights out. We've seen it, and we've seen it on slow greens as well. The Zozo would be somewhere with slow greens. Puerto Rico, another one. Those are larger greens. That's a larger course, but very slow greens. A part of the crossover that led me to Nate Lashley in the past as well at this tournament was because he had played so well in Puerto Rico in the past because of that putting angle that you might want to take when you're looking for long shots. So Nico will probably be boosted up in the odds and frankly be probably pretty popular. Ditto with Mav McNeely. Listen, Mav is one of his 18 home courses. Any course that is like $1,000 per round to play is probably a Mav McNeely home course because he grew up playing these courses. But I believe he is from the area as well, and this course does suit his game pretty well. He's historically played really well at courses with really small greens. That used to be an angle that we used to take with him because his short game and his putting is so strong, and he plays these short. He's been really good off the tee over the past 12 rounds, and he's been really beating up on these short par 4s, which is another angle that you can take. If we just sort by that, so we can do this a bunch of different ways. Let's do the rolling report. Because I do think that beating up, they're not drivable par 4s. They're layup, wedge, make some putts par 4s, which is a lot different than some of the tournaments that have the drivable par 4s. So if we go to rolling report, where can we find that? So Pebble Beach, We'll go to the rolling model, which is a feature of Fantasy National, and you can pick whatever stat that you want to look at. We're going to look primarily at par 4s, 350 to 400 yards over time to see who is the best. Now, model ranking, you can edit this out as well. I have them all listed as equal. We'll just do the pyramid, as I like to call it. And we'll make it a staggered pyramid where we'll give the most weight to past 50 rounds, so historic data, but really drop down past 100 rounds on par with past 4, past 8. You can see 11, 13, 20, 22, 23, 12 is how I have 4 through 100 listed in this updated model. Just see if we can get a model ranking. So if we just take those into consideration for par 4s, 350 to 400 yards, you have Morikawa, JT, Harry Hall, Rico, hey! Mark Hubbard? Hey, there's Mark Hubbard again. Maybe this is actually a better Rico course because it was such a disaster the final 2 rounds at Amex when I had money on him. Nothing like having both of the 36-hole leaders and then they barely hold on. Well, Rico didn't even finish. Where did he even finish? Like 40th in the tournament? He was 58th at the American Express. He was the 36-hole leader. Never play Rico Hoey at the stadium course at PGA West, as we have learned. And even Chuck Hoffman barely held on to his top 8. But he still got there and got us paid. But Rico is 4th in this modeling. Hubbard, Woodland, Dietrich, who popped up last year as well. And both of the POA putting courses. He played well at Torrey the year before, finished inside the top 20, and was playing in the final group on Saturday and just had a disastrous final round. Playing on the weekend right now at Torrey Pines as well, was top 5 after 3 rounds last year at this course. I don't know if he can ever close the door here because we've just seen a lot of American dominance at this event over the years. Now, it wasn't really a tournament where a lot of Euros played. Rose became the first British winner in like 40 years to win when he won 2 years ago. And before that, like Nick Taylor, I think, was the first international in 2020 to win. And that was like the first time in 15 years. The first time since like VJ in like 2007. Something like that was the first time an international one. So Americans have dominated this tournament over the years. But Hubbard was 5th, Woodland, Dietrich, Wyndham Clark, Grazerman, and Mav McNeely inside the top 10. Then you're into Scheffler, Harmon, JJ Spawn, Patrick Rogers, Johnny Vegas. There's Tom Hoagie. Another week where you can lose money on Tom Hoagie. Sahith, Burns, Putnam, Pendrith. You got Fleetwood, Henley. Where's poor Akshay? Jesus, Akshay. Akshay is 42nd in these, although over the past 12, he has played those pretty well. He's like my favorite player, so I'm probably going to bet him if he's reasonable odds, but we'll see how that ends up going. But if we just sort through time, so past 12 overall, Ricky, Rogers, Vegas, Thomas, Harry Hall, Mav, Burns, Fitz, Hubbard, and Hoy, or Hoey, as he likes to be called, are in the past 12. If we look at past 50, a longer sample, then you're into, and these are generally over time, who plays them a little bit better. You got Scotty, Wyndham Clark, last year's winner, Morikawa, who was inside the top 3 first-round leader at Pebble last year, Mav, Woodland, the U.S. Open winner at this course, Sahith, Pendrith, Spawn, Dietrich, Fleetwood, Denny, Hoagie, Harmon. So you got a lot of former winners, and this is just over the past 50 rounds. None of these include their win at Pebble outside of Wyndham Clark, probably from a year ago, and that might even be out of the range of the past 50, to be perfectly honest with you. Hall still up there. Chris Kirk and Billy Horschel pop up a little bit more. Putnam continues to linger. So Putnam from the back end are there. So I think what we're seeing from what I can glean of guys that you kind of want to take this week, there's the Gim Reaper, my guy. Harry Hall, Hubbard, and Putnam as bombs this week. Maybe JJ Spawn as well. Another California guy, puts well on these surfaces by and large, and has been playing some pretty decent golf, honestly, recently. And from the top, I like Cantlay and JT, but you could also potentially use Morikawa. Scotty, I'm going to be fading. It does seem that way. And then you have like Mav and Pendrith from that middle range that I do like a little bit this week. It's time to guess the odds for the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. It's a difficult one with both Spieth and Scotty back in the field, not knowing how the books are going to adjust for them. I'm just going to say they're probably going to list them like they normally are, and hopefully that you bet them, and the books are hoping that they're still injured, and you just waste your money betting on them. So I got Scotty on his return as the betting favorite, a little bit lower than you would normally see, 6-1 for Scottie Scheffler, Rory 8-1. Those would be the two favorites in my mind of where they're going to open. Then you're on to this next little mini tier of 4 guys. I think it's going to be Ludwig and Colin at 12-1, JT and Hideki at 16-1. Then we drop down a little bit more into the 20s. Cantlay and Victor at 22-1, Day, Fleetwood, and Im all at 28-1. There could be someone I'm missing in there. Maybe they're like, hey, Russell Henley's 25-1. Maybe Jordan Spieth is 20-1 because he has a great course history. Maybe Sam Burns will be inside the top 30. But I think those will be your 10 or so favorites in this tournament at Open, just because books love Fleetwood, books love Rory, and it's the first time you get to bet on them all year. And when you're dealing with more of a casual audience with no football on the go, I think you're going to see the very top of the board of the more established names that are the most popular names get pounded in the market a little bit more at Open than you would normally expect. Hopefully that means guy that everyone dislikes, Patrick Cantlay, does fall to 22, 25-1, and we can auto bet him and watch him come in fourth and lose the bet anyway, because that's what happens when you are Patrick Can't Win. But I still like to lose money on him anyway. Actually, he's probably like one of my most profitable golfers of all time. But hey, that's what we're going to look for this week. I hope you enjoyed the walkthrough on research. We're still sweating as of right now. Some big tickets on Saturday at the Farmers. So hopefully by the time that I talk to you on Monday with Feinberg as we recap this event, one of us made a ton of money this weekend. I know it would be Ludwig for all. I think that Pottinger for most people out there would be one of the biggest wins that they have ever had in golf betting. So again, it's probably why it can't happen, but fingers crossed that it can happen, because wouldn't that be nice? FantasyNational.com/Mayo to get yourself 20% off, and that leaderboard app as well included in the membership. Code Mayo at Underdog will get you that deposit bonus of up to $1,000 and help out this show significantly. Okay? Smash a like, sub to the channel while you are here, and I will see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!